Until Africa becomes strong and prosperous, no black man or black woman will be respected anywhere in the world, regardless of how much money they have, how tall or handsome or beautiful they are, whatever they command. So long as Africa remains in squalor, in disease, in pain, in death, in poverty, there is no way any black man or black woman anywhere would be accorded the respect that is deserved of any human being.
On today's edition of Unpopular Opinion, I have the privilege and honor to be speaking with a visionary leader who is challenging the status quo in Ghana and across Africa. Mr. Ernesto Yeboah is the Commander-in-Chief for Economic Fighters League. He is a force in the Pan-African movement. He's a Nkrumahist. He is a fierce advocate for economic democracy, political reform, and youth empowerment. From leading one-man protests at the University of Ghana to spearheading Drop That Chiba campaign, Ernesto has consistently stood against corruption and political complacency. His passion for justice, youth leadership, and dismantling the system of inequality makes him a remarkable figure in the fight for a better future for Ghana. Stay tuned as we explore his journey, his passion for Ghana, and the ongoing battle for economic and political reform in Ghana. But before I turn the platform over to the guests, I want you to please subscribe to this YouTube channel so that whenever I post similar content like this, you'll be amongst the first people that will be notified. Today's video is proudly sponsored by McKnight clothing brand. If you are living in Europe or in any parts of the world, you need African clothing similar to the one I'm wearing or any kind, you can simply check them up on their Instagram page. The link is in the description of this video. Mr. Ernesto Yeboah, you are welcome to Unpopular Opinion. The viewers would like to know, who is Mr. Ernesto Yeboah?
Thank you very much, Mohammed. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm grateful for your time and for allowing me to engage not just you, but your wonderful audience. Ernesto Yeboah is simply an activist who believes in the power of change and also believes that change doesn't require the whole world. It requires just one person with conviction and the belief and understanding that comes with it. And so this is just who I am, committed my life to this cause and to ensure that the history is not recounted without being referred to as one who endeavored to bring change or dared to imagine new things and a new world. And so, this is just, the gist who Ernesto Yeboah, is.
Thank you very much for the introduction. And I'd like for us to dive into the discussion, which is about the foundation of your organization. You are the Commander-in-Chief for Economic Fighters League. And we'd like to understand, why did you decide to go into such endeavor? And why do you think it is necessary that young people should put an effort to participate in economic liberation of their various countries? Why do you think this economic democracy is really important for Ghana?
Well, thank you very much once again, Mohammed. The whole idea of the Economic Fighters League, as I earlier stated, is premised on the idea of bringing about change in our lifetime. And not just any change that affects our material reality, change that changes our well-being from worst to best, change that invokes a new spirit of enthusiasm and a new spirit of innovation that drives the progress that we look forward to. If others have been able to do it, we should be able to do it, especially given the fact that we are the origin of humanity itself. And our civilizations, in terms of our history, points to the significance of what we have been, who we are, what we have done, and what we can do. And so the Economic Fighters League is premised on that belief that this should happen and can happen and must happen in our lifetime. Now, you would find that everywhere in the world where you would find Black people, you are also bound to find poverty. You are bound to see disease. You are bound to see chaos. And it is not for nothing. It is because some people somewhere have constructed it to make that, how do you call it, representation. And so when we talk about economic democracy, economic freedom in our lifetime and all of that, it is not out of naivety that we do not know what the reality is. The reality is that there is a system called neocolonialism that is in place to enforce the distribution and production, of world resources, and to scale these resources in a way that benefits just a particular group of people and not the rest of us. And so we are very clear in our minds, when we say economic freedom, because we know that the economic disparity, across the world, and discrimination that Black people face is not a natural, state of being. It is artificial. It has been created in order to produce a particular outcome. And so part of our work in ensuring economic freedom in our lifetime is by dismantling the system of oppression, the systems that are mounted to ensure that particular outcome that I have, described. And we take into consideration all of these in the full understanding that it will come with some effort, it will come with some fights, it will come with some determination, so that we can all free ourselves. And so this is basically what fuels the Economic Fighters. You can look at our objectives in three phases. The first phase, and this cuts across all Black communities. The first phase is the nationalist phase, which ensures that wherever we are as Black people, we are able to inspire that change, that internal change within and amongst us. So that's the nationalist phase of it. Then there's a second stage, which is a social state, the socialist, objective, which encourages the radical idea of sharing amongst ourselves and to ensure that forces of production are not skewed in favor of a particular class against the other. Now, the third stage, which manifests as our objective, is a Pan-African stage. Until Africa becomes strong and prosperous, no Black man or Black woman will be respected anywhere in the world, regardless of how much money they have, how tall or handsome or beautiful they are, whatever they command. So long as Africa remains in squalor, in disease, in pain, in death, in poverty, there is no way any Black man or Black woman anywhere will be accorded the respect that is deserved of any human being. And so we believe that the Pan-African stage as an objective is a very important aspect of the struggle that needs to be fought in order to bring about this layer of economic freedom that we have talked about. And so in a nutshell, these are the aspirations of the Economic Fighters League. And these are also what inspires us to do what we do.
Thank you very much for giving us the concept of Economic Fighters League. In your advocacy, you always maintain that there should be a change in the Ghanaian constitution. So I would like to understand, why have you insisted on change that needs to be made in the constitution of Ghana?
Well, Mohammed, it's very simple. We are not just looking for a change in the Ghana constitution. We are looking for an abrogation of the entire constitution. It needs to be thrown into the dustbin and a new one written and promulgated. And the reason why we say that is because the 1992 Constitution of Ghana is not a democratic document as it purports. It is a military document. And so on that basis and that basis alone, it does not qualify to hold itself as a democratic constitution, and let alone to bring about a democracy. And this is why we have consistently advanced the case for its abolition. Now, if you take democracy in its full essence, it is punctuated by three features. The first being that there must be certainty before the law. Certainty before the law. That it must be unequivocal. And what is written in black and white must be interpreted in black and white. So that's the first aspect. The second aspect is equality before the law. Equality before the law. That's all, whom the Constitution seeks to govern are equal before it, and therefore there is no discrimination. If this commits offense A, they will be punished accordingly. If the other commits same offense A, they should also be punished accordingly. And then the last but not least is what you call rule of law. Rule of law. That in every society, every democratic society, is ordered by these, variants. So equality before the law, certainty before the law, and the rule of law. Rule of law being that we all agree that nobody can act outside the barriers of the Constitution, and that every action must be dictated by what the Constitution prescribes. And so these are the three. But take the 1992 Constitution and let's subject it to this test as to whether it meets the requirements. And the very basic, equality before the law. The 1992 Constitution in Article 17 will tell you that we are all equal before the law. And yet when you go to the indemnity sections of the 1992 Constitution, it tells you that no, we are not equal before the law. In fact, certain people cannot be tried for wrongs that they committed against the people, or certain violations that were carried out, within a certain period. That is an aberration of democracy. And to that extent, the 1992 Constitution is not fit for purpose. Now, there was a constitutional review exercise that happened about 15 years ago And back then, we submitted a petition to the commission indicating that the indemnity sections of the 1992 Constitution should be scrapped. Now, the chairman of the commission, then Professor Shiajo, a Supreme Court judge, told us that, well, he agrees that the indemnity clause in the 1992 Constitution constitutes an aberration to democracy and therefore raises substantial questions. But in his view, the removal of the indemnity clause from the 1992 Constitution will simply means a total collapse of the entire Constitution. What this reveals is that the 1992 Constitution is built on a faulty foundation. And any building structured on a faulty foundation cannot stand. And so to that extent and that extent alone, the 1992 Constitution cannot be held, as a constitution that is worth the respect and mandates of the people, and for which reason it has to be discarded in order for a new one to be written. Now, this new one that would have to be written, we have proposed should come through what we call the Constituent Assembly, an elected Constituent Assembly. Now, what is the nature of an elected Constituent Assembly? You would find that journalists would have an elected representative that becomes part of this Constituent Assembly. Teachers would have theirs, workers will have their representatives, lawyers would have theirs, professional groups would have theirs. In fact, even to the point of area representation, would have a say in this elected Constituent Assembly. And this would happen across the whole country. And so what you are going to have is a body of representatives from all sections of society that then comes to sit down to respond to the ideational question of what kind of future do we want for ourselves? What kind of Ghana are we looking at? And things like that. And you would find that this is how the American Constitution came to be written. And indeed, any other constitution that is founded in a democratic society. And so what we are saying is not a pie in the sky or something out of the moon, which has never happened before. These are things that have happened over and over and over again. It is also the issue of the power play. If you talk about amending the constitution and not a new constitution, what then comes up and what people don't see is that when it comes to the amendment process, it will not take an elected Constituent Assembly to make that happen. It's simply going to be the executive deciding who they can bring together to constitute a committee or a commission that looks into the idea of a new constitution. And that's why we spent about $6 million on the amendment process through the Constitutional Review Commission. Until date, nothing came out of it. It's all because the power when it comes to amendment is limited and left in the hands of just a few group of people who then decide what should be in the Constitution and what shouldn't. I recall that the TUC, the Trades Union Congress of Ghana, also presented a petition to the commission. It was a very simple request they made of the commission that ex gratia, maybe just to throw light on what ex gratia is and what it has come to mean in Ghana. Members of parliament, members of the executive, members of the judiciary, after every 4 years, are rewarded, I mean, handsomely with outrageous amounts. And every time it happens in the country, you can almost touch or hold the tensions, I mean, in the public. Because people become very incensed. You have people who have, and it's for justifiable reasons, people who have worked all their lives for about 30, 40 years of their lives, and they are going home with just about $500. And these politicians and people in the executive and judiciary and legislature who only worked for 4 years are taking home about $1 million. That's how outrageous, I mean, and obscene and sinful the amounts involved, I mean, are. And so every time when it's that time of the year and as Gracia is announced, there's significant public discontent. And so the TUC presented a request before the Constitutional Review Commission, telling the commission that, you know what, commissioners, please scrap ex gratia, scrap it off constitution completely, or extend ex gratia to all workers in Ghana. And guess what? Because the power of amendment, like I said, is limited to the hands of a few, they just shelved it. And to date, ex gratia is still very expressive in the 1992 Constitution. And so this is just one example of the power play here. Meanwhile, imagine an elected constituent assembly. So workers have their representatives all over the country and they are there. I mean, and the issue of ex gratia comes up. How, I mean, do you think workers or members of the significant members of the Constituent Assembly are going to vote? They are obviously going to vote for it to be extended to all workers, or they are going to vote for it to be scrapped. And that will be the final decision.
Thank you very much. We're going to continue to talk about the constitutional review. I want us to add something to the discussion, which is about corruption. You are a fierce advocate of corruption in Ghana. And in one of the research that I made about you is that you had an issue with the former president of Ghana, Mr. Mahama. I want you to explain what drove that decision and what lessons have you been able to learn from the pushback from the political elite or the political class in Ghana?
Well, Mohammed, that's a tough question, ironically, because everywhere you attempt to fight corruption, corruption fights you back. I think it's standard everywhere in the world, and so it's not just Ghana alone. And at the time, I was the national youth organizer of the Convention People's Party, more or less like the leader of the youth wing of that party. It came to us that then President, John Dramani Mahama had received a Ford Expedition car bribe from a contractor. And shortly after the car gift had been given, the contractor was awarded a contract. And so we took the matter up and wrote to the Commission for Human Rights and Administrative Justice, SRAJ for short, requesting an independent investigation and an assessment and a pronouncement as to whether the president's action constitutes a conflict of interest. Now, you would think that as one coming from an opposition party taking this step, the leadership of the party would have been very excited that the leader of the youth wing is taking such a step to expose corruption in the government, the very seats that we were also seeking to go and occupy. And for that matter, it would even become one of the listed items in their campaign mantra. That fellow Ghanaians, you see, it's not even as, the overall leadership of the party that is fighting corruption, at this level. It is our youth wing. And so this should be your assurance. If you had any doubts, this should be your assurance that should we be given the mandate to govern this country, we are going to fight corruption fearless and reduce it, if not eradicate it completely. But that was not the position of the party. The party took offense. Leader of the youth wing had taken such a step. And therefore, the Central Committee met, and the brightest idea that came to them was to suspend and later on expel me from the party. These are some of the consequences when one decides to fight corruption. But we don't call it corruption. We've learned to call it what it is. It's stealing. We feel that the word corruption is used when it involves a certain class, and then stealing is used when it involves another class. When somebody goes to steal a mobile phone or a fowl or cassava in the farm, we don't call it corruption, you call it stealing. But when the politician adds 10 and to compound the figure, that's when we say corruption. That is also stealing. And I think that it's high time that we strip some of these jargons bare for what they are. And it's also the reason many in our society, and not just in Ghana, but across Africa, do not understand what their governments are doing to them. Because every time they steal, the newspaper or the media reports it as corruption. And so the people don't understand. But you just step out of your room and scream, thief, 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 and see the kind of reaction you will get from people. And so we feel that people don't react in the way that they should because they don't understand what is happening. But if they get to understand that what is happening is blatant stealing, they know exactly what to do. And that's, just one example of what happened. That's in a minority diminutive party like the Convention People's Party. So, that's the extent to which I can elucidate on that particular fight for corruption that was.
Thank you very much. We've spoken about your background. We talk about your demand for new constitution, and we also spoke about the anti-corruption. I want us to go into youth political participation in Ghana. You are known to be one person who staged protest at the University of Ghana while you were a student, and that protest gained momentum until it led to you becoming the flag barrier of Drop That Chimor campaign. So we'd like to understand, what does that moment represent for you, and what do you think it represents for the broader context of young people in Ghana in the fight against corruption and economic democracy?
Well, protest is innate, and so each and every one of us have it within us to protest. In fact, no constitution in the world gives us the right to protest. Every democratic constitution actually uses the word guarantee. So it says that the right of protest is guaranteed, because no constitution can give you and I that right, or anybody the right to protest. We're born with it. It's an inalienable right. And therefore, we can all exercise it, and must all exercise it if we really want to see change. And so that's where I put it. Now, you talked about protests during my student days, yes. I mean, my activism didn't start today. It started way back, and I want to believe that it has been of significance in many respects in terms of driving the change that we want to see everywhere we find ourselves. The University of Ghana, one that became very popular, was the one-man protest. And so this was a protest that didn't require any participation from any other person, but simply invoking my individual self-sovereignty to resist and to advance a cause, I mean, for justice. But the beauty of some of these kinds of protests is that even though it doesn't require a large number of people and it's sometimes just one person, it is very infectious. I mean, you step forward, mount that resistance. Others get, I mean, for the lack of a better word, contaminated. They get consumed by that passion. And before you realize, many other people, I mean, join. And so that's exactly what happened at the University of Ghana when that one-man demonstration was, or protest was waged. It just started with a red band around my wrist. After a short period of time, a significant number of the student body had joined in that particular struggle. The thing about the drop that chain occurred at a time when the parliamentarians of Ghana felt the need to build for themselves a new parliamentary chamber and to import new furniture, chairs and beds and things like that. And also have, as part of this new structure that we were putting up, a gymnasium and also a place where they could relax and then receive their visitors or just, I mean, gather around and chill, that kind. Despite the public uproar against that as a priority of the parliamentary leadership of the country, they kept ignoring the criticism and pretending that Ghanaians were saying something else. And so you listen to an MP speak on the subject, and they go like, "Oh, Ghanaians are not opposed to us building a new chamber. They are just opposed to the amount involved." And so such silly and annoying divergence in terms of trying to diverge, I mean, the public focus on what the real issues are. It was in the midst of this that I decided to go to Parliament, take my seat at the public gallery, and make sure that my voice, I mean, was heard as a Ghanaian or as an individual. That if they were not hearing us because we're speaking through mediums like through the newspapers or through television media or through radio, now we're coming to them physically to make our voices heard. The moment, I mean, that happened on that particular day, that was the end of the matter. They never brought it up again that we wanted to build a new parliamentary chamber and then things like that. So that was the effect or the power behind that particular protest. Of course, I was arrested, but it was short-lived. I was immediately released because the public uproar was quadruple what it had earlier been, and for fear of the political repercussions and what could, I mean, occur, they decided not to pursue that matter. And so this brings into the other
aspect about protests. We'll go to other protests, and in some as we go along the discussion. Young people participation in politics and in economic development across Africa, not just in Ghana, is being hampered with so many challenges. And for the case of Ghana, what are some of the basic challenges that you believe that young people need to overcome before they are able to participate in the rebuilding of their country through legally, not some illegal means? And what do you think are the opportunities that young people are having currently and they are not also making use of it? Because we can talk about corruption all the time. We can talk about not having the opportunities for young people, but there are also opportunities that young people have which they are not making use of. So in the context of Ghana, I'd like for you to discuss that and then we can move forward.
Okay. So Ghana, like many African societies, is an ageist society. Young people are faced with the challenge of ageism. You can't be in a meeting with others and not be referred, to as a young man, young lady, or you are my son, and such paternalistic tendencies. So Ghana is not different from the rest of Africa in that regard. Now, what the Economic Fighters League has proposed is a governance that is inclusive. And when we say inclusive, currently you have, our population demography, you have about 60% are women and more than 50% are youth. When you look at the complexion of governance, those who sit behind the decision-making table, you'll find that it is heavily skewed against young people and especially women, in the country. And so that needs to be corrected. One of the measures we have proposed is what we call proportional representation. I think Nigeria and Ghana, run first past the post electoral system. And that in itself doesn't help because what it does is that it fuels a winner takes all kind of society. And that's all we are looking for. And especially for a developing country or a growing society. Going forward, you'd want a society that makes the best use of all its resources, and especially its human resources. And so when you come together, you'll find that the significant majority, in terms of the constitution of the population, are actually on the periphery. The insignificant, for the lack of a better word, are actually the ones at the center and taking all the decisions for everybody. Ekufuado, our president, is over 80 years old. For Christ's sake, what is he doing there? How sure are we that he's not taking decisions that are detrimental to the life of the vast majority of the people, especially as he's not going to face any of these consequences? I can't see Ekufuado alive in 30 years or 40 years. I can't. An 80-year-old man, what else does he need apart from, saying goodbye to God after he serves as president and all that? So, pardon me for my lack of expression in this, but it needs saying. These are facts. Now, you would find that he has his hand under some of the most egregious, ridiculous, dangerous agreements that any president could sign a nation into. And one is thinking that if Mr. Ekufuado was a young person like myself, like you, would he, be signing or putting his signature to such documents when he knows very well that he's also going to live, the consequences?
All right. Thank you very much for that explanation. Africa continues to experience growing number of young people. And currently, there are about 450 million young people in Africa. And it is estimated that that population will continue to increase at least 3% between the age of 15 to 24 from now to 2030. So what do you think Ghana holds in that area? What do you think are some of the opportunities that the Ghanaian youth can also take advantage of this growing population in order to better the economic system in Ghana?
Mohammed, I'm sorry to disappoint you on this because we in the Economic Fighters League believe that Ghana is going nowhere unless unites with the rest of the African continent. And the reason why we say that and we're of that firm conviction is because kindly our population is just a little over 30 million. And this number is insignificant in terms of the number of people that use Chinese yuan, for instance, or the number of people that use the American dollar. And so you would find that always Ghana's currency is bound to depreciate. We are bound to face challenges in monetary arrangement and engagement. And so the only way forward for Ghana's survival is to unite with the rest of Africa. You gave statistics pointing to the youth, population and all of that. I want to look at the entire population of Africa. And currently we are about 1.5 billion. Now imagine 1.5 billion people using one currency. That's huge. And there's so much we can do with that. And that's why we feel that we are missing out. As a continent and of course as a country, using separate individual currencies. And so I can't think of any opportunity that we can get as a neo-colonial unit, as Ghana, Nigeria, and the rest of the continent, if all we are content with is simply the colonial borderlines that our former masters, left for us. There is no way we can make progress.
Time is not on our side, and it's getting dark. As you can see,
Sure.
I can't really see your face, so I wouldn't want to hold you much longer. And I'd like for us to do a part 2 of this podcast. And but before we take a leave of you, I'd like to ask you, is there something that you'd like for us to talk about and we did not talk about? Maybe you can say that. And what do you think the future holds for Ghana in terms of your ideology and the concepts that you are pushing for the Ghanaian people?
Well, the future is bleak so long as Ghana follows in the same trajectory that we have been on since 1966. And so if there's going to be any ray of hope, it will be the fact that we become conscious of our misdeeds from 1966 and then turn, a new leaf. Otherwise, I don't see any future, for Ghana in that respect. We have to continue as activists to engage in the political education process, because it's only through political education that the masses would be liberated. And it is at that point of liberation that we can make progress. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much for being here today. And I really appreciate you taking up your time to be on the platform. It has been a great pleasure interacting with our guest today. But before we take a leave of him, I want you all to please help me to grow this channel by subscribing, liking, commenting, and sharing, so that we will build a channel where the next generation of African leaders or the African youth can come and learn from. Mr. Ernesto, thank you very much. And until we meet again, shalom.